Hi, friends. This is Caroline from Carousel, and welcome. It's been a while. My 40 days of peace gathering, the Planet Peace Project, is over. We completed the 40 days. It was amazing. So, if you'd like to start that or do that on your own time, that's available on my YouTube channel or on my website via the Carousel Divine memberships. So, today, I want to talk about why it's so important as we move forward to have a strong inner foundation, and it's going to become increasingly more apparent as we move forward. So, I'd like to start with if you are one of those people that is holding your breath for things to go back to normal, or if you're one of those people that feels like you're just waiting for things to kind of to slow down or to go back to the way they were or for some sense of normalcy to come back, I encourage you to exhale that breath, to let that breath go, because we are not going back. We're not going back to the way things were. There's no way we can go back. Too many shadows have been unearthed and will continue to be unearthed as we move forward through this period. Also, what I feel is this is going to be a lot longer than what many people are hoping or expecting it to be. So I feel like I feel like the collective is sort of feeling like, oh, once the election is over, or oh, once the new year comes, or oh, once this thing happens, things will kind of go back or they'll calm down. And what I feel is not that at all. I feel that this is a much longer, drawn out process, and we haven't even reached the peak of the shitstorm, so to speak. So, what I can tell you though is that this will all be for the better. But I'm just taking a look at my notes because I want to say this well. And so the thing is there's so much more changes coming. We can't go back to the way things were because that place doesn't even exist anymore. Too many shadows have been unearthed, and so many more are yet to come. Like I said, we haven't even reached the peak of this yet. So, our outer world is still going to change considerably, and this is just the beginning. It's just getting started. So, as all of the ancient traditions have like prophesized and divined, which I may or may not go into later, but you are more than welcome to do your own research if that does resonate with you or rings an alarm for you. But as the ancient traditions have prophesized, the end is nigh, the end is near. And no, this isn't like the end of the world, like cataclysmic, but it is the end of the way things were. And right now we're in that transitionary phase into the way they will be. So we're kind of in that weird, like liminal space, and we will be for a while. What I feel is that there are those that are aware of the time in history, the end of the cycle is basically what we're in. Um, there are those that are aware of the situation that are attempting to um, like drive it in a certain way instead of letting the organic ascension, which is what this time is prophesized for, happen naturally. So we're still morphing into what will be. What I can tell you though is where we're going, this will become is amazing. Like we're going into the golden age, we're going into new earth, the golden age of peace and prosperity for all. Like that is real and that is coming. So I promise you it's going to be so much better, but we have to purge all of the limitations, the shadows, the illusions that have kept us from living in that way up until this point. So everything that's prevented us from living in the golden age already, that has to come to the surface and be purged, and that's kind of what we're starting to do now. Very slowly. We're like dipping our toe into it. That's the magnitude at which I see this will become. So this is going to be a very timely process. It's going to take more time. Obviously, we didn't get here overnight, and so these things can't just end overnight. It's the same thing when we're purging or healing our own stuff. Usually we've accumulated these wounds or illusions or limitations over a lifetime, and so it takes sometimes time for those things to happen, for those things to be healed or removed. And it's going to take time and it's going to be uncomfortable. And it's uncomfortable for two reasons. One is that for those that are still asleep or cannot face the reality of the situation, it's going to take an extreme discomfort for them to be jolted awake, basically, for their eyes to open. So that's one reason it will be uncomfortable. The other reason it will be uncomfortable is because facing our shadows just is uncomfortable. It just is the nature of the beast. So whether we're facing them as a planet or a nation or an individual, like it just is an uncomfortable process. The dark night of the soul, so to speak. So that shadow work, necessary, important. It's only in the environment of discomfort is the soil for growth. So it is necessary, but doesn't make it any more fun or enjoyable, you know. With that said, our outer world is going to continue to change. And we can't stop this. We can't stop this process. We can't make it end any earlier. We can't prevent it. We can't bypass it. I even asked my guidance. I was like, is there any way to bypass the tribulation? And they're basically like, no. Like, some people will have more extreme or less extreme experiences during this, but there's no way to bypass this situation. So there's a few reasons we can't change it or stop it or prevent it or speed it up or bypass it. One is that in the ruins of what was is where we get the building blocks for what will be. So, and there will be no space for us to create a new beautiful earth, basically, or a golden age if we don't break the things that are preventing us from getting there. So that's one thing that's really important. The other thing was, there's a few, looking at my notes here. Also, we can't go back to the old way. So these things do have to break. We have to keep moving forward. There's nothing to go back to, like I mentioned in the beginning. And a strong inner foundation will be one of your lifeboats in this tribulation, in this trial, in this like the ending of the age, basically. Or really where the age will end, like basically kind of officially December 21st, 2020. Then we will be in kind of the next age, and then in that really transitionary period of the almost like igniting the spark for the golden age. But so much has to be cleared out and removed and purged for us to move fully and integrate like in a unified form into that way, into the golden age. So a strong inner foundation, the other lifeboats that are available to you to help you have safe passage through this period, basically, are community and connection, love and forgiveness, and self-sufficiency, plus a strong inner foundation. The inner foundation is basically the building, it's the foundation of the other three. So without a strong inner foundation, it's going to be hard to kind of ignite or start those other lifeboats. So the strong inner foundation is basically our connection to our true self. And our true self is that God source, or that drop of divinity, or our soul, or our authentic self, or the self we were when we were children before we were domesticated to be something else or something less. And so it's not what we show our friends, or it's not what we show our mom, or it's not what we show social media. It's that true authentic self. And so many of us have lost our connection with ourselves over years of self-betrayal. And self-betrayal takes many different forms, but it's, for example, the times when we say yes, when we actually want to say no. It's the times when we modify our behavior to get attention or accolades or acceptance. It's when we abuse ourselves with words or substances or behaviors. And it's when we justify abuse from others. And so these are all ways in which we betray ourselves. And as we operate in this self-betrayal a little bit by a little bit, we slowly deteriorate that connection to our authentic self, because we also don't trust ourselves with our authentic self, with our truth anymore. Our actions demonstrate that we can't be trusted with our authentic self or with our truth. So, creating a strong inner foundation will most likely involve something that connects you to the divine. So for me, that's a strong meditation practice. I have like other rituals that I do, or spending time in nature. And so it doesn't have to be a ritual practice. It doesn't have to be religious or spiritual, but nature is that as well. So if you have a nature time that you enjoy, that's a good start to create the inner foundation. It involves quiet time and self-reflection, being honest with yourself, daily actions that build self-trust. So making small commitments to yourself that you can keep. So whether that's 5 minutes of meditation, for example, my 40 days of peace gathering, the Planet Peace Project, that's a good start. It's 40 days committing a small act to yourself, building that muscle of self-trust. And by the end of it, it's a little bit stronger. So you can evolve, move on to something a little bit bigger, a bigger project or a bigger dream. It also requires deprogramming our minds and our belief systems from the things that have limited us. So for example, the limiting program or the limiting belief that you have to have a 9 to 5 job to survive, or your dream career won't support you, you can't live in that. Those are all limiting programs. They're not true. I know they're not true because you can find examples of people that are doing what you want to do or a version of what you want to do and are successful. The exceptions to the rules exist, and there's no reason that it can't be you. You've just been led to believe and domesticated by fear so much that you believe playing it safe is better. That's all. So it doesn't mean that it's not. It's just that we've been domesticated by fear so much. So a strong foundation, inner foundation, also requires bravery to ask ourselves daily, am I operating out of fear or am I operating out of love? And it involves honoring our true self, which is the love that's within us, even when it's hard or unpopular to do so. So honoring that true self, your true essence within you. And also nurturing ourselves back to strength when we don't have the strength to do so, to do the thing that we know is right in the beginning, because that muscle takes time. It builds up over time, especially if we have a lifetime of self-betrayal. So there are a few critical reasons why a strong foundation is so important through this period, and even more so than normal. I think it's always important to be your authentic and true self, but even more so as our outer world is changing so much. What the guidance told me is that a strong inner foundation is huge right now. So the few critical reasons are when we reject ourselves or aspect of ourselves, we make space for something else to master us because we have not mastered ourselves. I have a video called How Self-Judgment Affects Your Energy that explains it much more in depth. But basically, if you don't master or own yourself or aspects of yourself, if you've rejected them so much that you don't own them, you don't master them, you're creating distance, you're creating space within yourself where something outside of you can come in and master you, whether that's an idea or an entity, a being, or an organization or an institution or a political party. So if we don't own all aspects of ourselves, something else can. If we're not in alignment, the second reason is if we're not in alignment and operating with the truth inside of us, we cannot recognize truth we cannot recognize truth outside of us. The macrocosm is a reflection of our microcosm. So this also makes us easily manipulated or deterred from our path. If you're not operating within truth within yourself, you're not going to be able to identify a frequency that you don't emit, that you don't embody, you know? The third reason is being honest with ourselves allows us to evolve and ascend. I keep hitting my microphone. If we cannot, without self-honesty, we cannot identify and take responsibility for our wounds, projections, baggage, limitations. So without self-honesty, we can't really ascend. You can't grow if you're not being honest with yourself about where you need to grow or the things that need to be adjusted. So that's being in connection with our authentic self. We will be limited in our personal growth and development. And the fourth reason is if we are willing and capable of when we are connected to our authentic self, we are more willing and capable of positively adapting to outwardly changing circumstances, because we will not be identifying or limiting ourselves to external labels or statuses. So when you have a strong connection of self, you don't need your cell phone, or you don't need your followers, or you don't need your car, or you don't need these other external things to validate you or to like prop up some false sense of self. When you're truly connected to your authentic self, you're connected to your own divinity, to your own drop of God, to who you came into this world to be, you don't need an external circumstance or a label or an identity or a status to make you worthy or to feed you or to fuel you. You are fueled from the inside out. You are self-sufficient. You are self-fueled. So that's why it's really important. It's so important for us to create a strong foundation of our connection to self and inner strength, basically getting back in touch with your authentic self, with your authentic needs, what you truly want, what you feel is right, your true values, not values that have been told or sold to you, but what really matters on the inside, especially as our outer world changes so much. A strong inner foundation is going to help you sail through these waters. So as I mentioned, to enter the golden age or new earth, we must free ourselves of the things that have prevented us from being there in the first place. So this has to occur on the global scale for that to happen. For us to move into the new earth, we kind of all collectively have to be there. To create a shift in the collective, though, individuals that make up the collective must be the shift on the micro scale. So this means that individuals are responsible for creating the world they want to see within themselves first, before we can expect to see it in the world outside of us. So really, like that quote, I believe it was Gandhi. It might be Mother Teresa, but be the change. It was Gandhi. You be the change you want to see in the world. So that's exactly what this is here, and it couldn't be more true. And I'll give you a visual of why. So you can't give or create something outside of yourself that you don't already embody inside. So the visual that my guidance gave me, and I've mentioned this in another video, is if you can imagine the earth as a huge bubble, a huge bubble. And inside the bubble, there are 7+ billion smaller bubbles, which represent each individual person. So those that are operating from a space of love or more love-based are pink bubbles. Those that are operating from fear or are fear-based are gray bubbles. And so each bubble basically has its own color, and you can see the mix of the pink and the gray bubbles. So the color of the earth, or the collective color, is based off of the individual colors. And so the collective is made of the individuals. The more love-based individuals there are, the more pink individuals there are, the more pink the collective earth will be. So your individual bubble, the way you operate in the world, the way you choose to be, what light you emit, what frequency you operate in, it matters. It impacts the collective. What you do, the way you think, the way you interact with other humans, like that all is important and it matters. What you are radiating out into the collective affects the collective. You matter. And so this is why we have to come back to operating in the microcosm, taking care of our own bubble first and making that strong inner foundation, so your bubble can be pink or love-based or whatever you'd like to see it as. And so I believe, and we've all had examples of this, we're offered gentle lessons before we're kind of forced into hard ones. So we come into this earth to learn lessons so we can evolve as a soul, as an individual, and eventually make our way back to source, so to speak. We're drops of source learning about itself in a physical form for this temporary time. So we're given gentle lessons before we're given hard ones. And we've seen this in our relationships. We've seen this in our health. We've seen this in a whole bunch of different things. So you usually notice the red flags in a relationship. And if you choose to ignore them, they tend to get pretty loud and maybe ugly later on. Or if you have a health situation, there tends to be small signs beforehand. If you ignore it, they build and build and build until they're so loud you can't ignore them. So I believe that we are all being invited, or I'm inviting you, to a gentle lesson of creating that inner foundation. Because if we don't do it now, our external circumstances are going to continue to change. And at one point, they're going to change very rapidly. And it's going to continue to shift and morph. And at some point, it isn't going to look like the world that we knew. So if we don't create that strong inner foundation now, while it's easy, while we have the tools and the time, and while it's a gentle lesson, I feel that we will be forced into it later because the external circumstances will shift so much. And so I don't mean that from fear, but I'm just telling you what I see, and I'm giving you the tools ahead of time. And so this is your gentle invitation. This is your gentle invitation to create a strong inner foundation, which means connecting to your authentic self, your divine self, the one that is your truth, your capital T truth, to limit those acts of self-betrayal and come back to what is really your values and your truth. And that's why it's so important. That's why it's so important to move forward. So I will probably go into the other lifeboats. I'm going to be posting more about how to navigate these waters. It is, I don't know what the other intuitives are saying, but what I feel is this: I feel a lot coming. It's going to be slow at first, and then it's going to be fast. So I'll try to post as much information as I can. But it's important to create this strong inner foundation so you have the clarity, so you can identify certain things, because you will be resonating truth inside of you. And so you will be able to resonate or identify what is truth and what is not truth in the external world, because there's so much information floating around. And that will be your true compass, your north, your true north, your compass. So I highly, highly encourage that inner foundation. If you have questions on how to create that, please message me, let me know. Join my Carousel Divine Online memberships and that community there. You'll have resources and support. Try the 40 days of peace gathering. 40 days of offering service daily was very impactful for me, and I loved every minute of it. And so I highly recommend it. And I am here for you. So once again, this is Caroline from Carousel. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for watching, for being with me for this time. And I am with you. I'm here with you. We're going through this together. And I hope you enjoy your day. I will be with you so soon.